Welcome back, my fellow patriots, to the Save Our Republic daily episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the First Amendment and the free speech clause of the First Amendment and how it interacts with what's been going on in connection with the president in Washington, D.C. at the Ellipse, as well as his impeachment proceedings. You may have heard legal commentators and media reporters and on the social media and other places a reference to Brandenburg. So I'm going to tell you about what that case is and then relate it quickly to whether or not the president meets that standard. So Brandenburg, and by the way, I've taught constitutional law at Western Michigan, Thomas M. Cooley School of Law, as well as at Cooley before it was associated with Western Michigan. I taught this particular case, so I'm a pretty good authority on what's going here. Brandenburg versus Ohio was a 7-2 case, but the two were concurring. So this was a unanimous decision by the Supreme Court. It was issued in 1969, and it struck down an Ohio law. And the Ohio law in particular prohibited, and I'm going to quote the statute here, it prohibited the advocating, the duty, necessity, or propriety of crime, sabotage, violence, or unlawful methods of terrorism as a means of accomplishing industrial or political reform, unquote. So I'm going to stick with the communists today. Communists write the Communist Manifesto. They advocate for the violent overthrow of capitalist system. Clearly violates this law because it is advocating for the violent or unlawful method of terrorism for accomplishing political reform. In the case itself, we'll switch to the KKK. It was the KKK. And the KKK organized a rally, invited the press. It had weapons, a Bible, they had a red hood, they burned a cross. But the only people that were there were the Klan and a reporter. And they got prosecuted, the Klan got prosecuted, and the court struck down the law. And the court reasoned that the freedom of speech and press do not permit a state to forbid advocacy of the use of force or violating a law, except where such advocacy is directly related to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. So there's kind of two prongs of this. The first is simply writing about and advocating, speaking about, podcasting about, whatever it is, the violent overthrow of the government or committing crimes, that's constitutionally protected. So the Communist Manifesto, the KKK writings about overthrowing, creating a white supremacist state, radical Muslims about tearing down the United States and replacing it with a religious theocracy, whatever it might be, those are protected. The second bucket is you're actually advocating and it is likely, it is directed toward inciting or producing imminent lawless action. So we need to tear down the government now. We need to assassinate the president now. Okay? And then it says, even that's not enough. You have to go one step further, that it is likely to incite or produce such action. So let's say you're a communist. You're standing in front of the state capitol in Lansing, Michigan. You want to violently overthrow the Michigan government. And you say, we need to overthrow the government right now, right here. And you're talking to yourself. You're talking to an elementary school class. You're talking to Republicans, Democrats, and Libertarians, all who disagree with you. And everybody kind of shrugs their shoulders and say, you're a lunatic. You're going to be able to say that. Now, if you're in front of the Red Brigade that has Molotov cocktails and is ready to storm the Lansing state capitol, and you're right there and you're saying, do it right now, well, then you would be able to be prosecuted, and that speech would not be protected under the First Amendment. We've heard a lot about what exactly President Trump said, the words that he used. There's a lot of parsing of that. Most legal scholars that I've heard, and I tend to agree with them, have come to the conclusion that what the president said at the Ellipse would not fit within, not meet the test of Brandenburg to allow him to be criminally prosecuted. But of course, impeachment and criminal prosecution are two different things altogether. Impeachment is political. Criminal prosecution is entirely different. And so we need to keep that in mind too as we look towards what might happen in the trial. Thank you. I know this is a little bit longer than usual, but I thank you for your attention to this matter. I want to refer you to 3 resources. Don't forget about my book, America's Survival Guide, How to Stop America's Impending Suicide by Reclaiming Our Founding First Principles in History. Unfortunately, I think that subtitle is coming true, and you can get the book at americasurvivalguide.com. Don't forget about Patriot Week, which hopes to unify Americans behind our founding first principles of the rule of law, unalienable rights, limited government, the social compact, equality, and the right to alter or abolish an oppressive government. Free speech is obviously an unalienable right. Trying to tear down the country is a violation of the social compact. And I'm going to talk about revolution, the right to alter or abolish an oppressive government in a future episode about why that is important, but very, very rarely can be invoked, at least a violent revolution. And don't forget about the podcast, Patriot Lessons, American History and Civics. You can find that on Apple, Google, and all other places where podcasts are found. Until tomorrow, God bless you, and God bless America.